Here we go with another video in this series. We have 2018 albums that I have changed my mind on. You know what this kind of video is. You've seen them before. Many critics, well, maybe not many, maybe some music reviewers on YouTube have done videos like this in the past, and I wanted to hone in on specific years to kind of narrow down 5 that have grown on me and 5 that have grown off me from each year that I have been doing this channel. Now please go watch the 2017 one as well. That video is already on the channel. I've already talked about the 2017 albums that I've changed my mind on, and as I said in that video as well, if you do want me to go further back than 2017 and maybe touch on other years in the 2010s or even earlier than that, let me know. There's always albums that I'm changing my mind on, and I think more critics or reviewers or whatever you want to call me, YouTuber, I don't even know what you want to call me, but I think more people in that lane should be more open to accepting and admitting that actually a lot of albums just grow on you and grow off you all the time. It's a regular thing, and it doesn't happen with every album, but I think more people should be open to accepting that things can change. We're not always, you know, exactly in the right frame of mind when we're listening to an album, so your opinion could change on it very quickly, and yeah, more music reviewers should be open to accepting that. So before I waste my time anymore, I may as well get into the video. Please subscribe as well if you haven't already. Hit that bell. Make sure you're catching every video. There's loads of videos like this, loads of reviews on the channel. Don't miss them. Hit the bell because analytics are telling me that, you know, the people subscribed ain't watching my videos much. So if you're subscribed, then watch them. Then just watch the videos. Starting off with the Grown Off Me section. I'm going to go Grown Off Me, then Grown On Me for each album. And we're going to go with a pretty big one because I gave this a really high score back when it came out, but it has grown off me, so I have to be honest, and I will say Against All Logic's 2012 to 2017. I don't know what it is, but between now and 2017 I have gotten into a lot of electronic, techno, tech house, minimal techno, ambient techno, techno, house, deep house, outside of house, banging house, bangers, tunes, electronic big bangers, whatever the hell you want to throw in as a side genre of electronic music and house music. I've heard it now. I've been just listening to way more of it in my free time and reviewed a lot more of it on this channel, and so therefore I think my big boner, my giant boner, well, maybe not giant, but my adequately sized boner, what am I saying, has shrunken since 2017 for this album. It just has. I just don't think I'm as big on it anymore. I still think Nicholas Jar is a god. He's a god. He is a king of kings, a god of gods, but I don't think this album just quite lives up to what I used to think. By the way, though, I still think it's really good. I still think it's an enjoyable house listen. It runs a little long, but I just don't think the tunes are as tasty as I once thought. I mentioned this one before, but another grown on me here is Hop Along's Bark Your Head Off Dog. I don't know what it is about this band, but they've really resonated with me over the past few years. I just find Frances's voice to be so weirdly charming, the way she kind of breaks and, you know, just hits those off notes every now and then, just gives her this very human feel, very earthly, human, natural feel that I just really appreciate. And these songs have really just gotten better over time. I don't know what it is about them, but the instrumentals I think are really great. They're crisp, they're a bit rough around the edges, but it just adds for such a great feel to this music. And again, it just feels also natural and organic, and the flaws in perhaps some of the vocal isms occasionally just add to the mood that this album sets. It all just feels really human and touching, and lyrically I think this album is great too. How Simple, amazing song, absolutely fantastic, one of my favorites of the 2010s. This album just has it all. I don't know why I didn't quite catch that originally. Next for Grown Off Me, we've got Solemn Brigham and L'Orange with Marlowe. Now, I think L'Orange, how do you say L'Orange? Whatever. That producer, L'Orange, I think it's L'Orange, I think that's how you say it. This guy, why he's not been producing for bigger names, I will never know. I think he's one of the most overlooked producers at the moment. Whenever I hear an album that this man is on, producing for someone else, whoever it is, the beats steal the show every time. So I just think if this man worked with an amazing rapper or an amazing duo or just someone that has so much talent in hip-hop, I think he could be one of the biggest producers around, but he just isn't. And while I still enjoy this album, the point I'm making here is that the beats really steal the show. And Solemn Brigham, I think, is a good rapper. I just think he is still in his early days. The second album that they released last year really left no impression on me, and it was really because of Solemn's lack of distinctness. I couldn't really pick out anything that he was saying or anything he was rapping in a particular way that stood out. He just kind of fades into the background, whereas L'Orange is just killing it with his production chops. And I just, again, think with more time and more growth, this rapper Solemn could be fantastic. And with more access to resources, L'Orange could be a legend. We need to make it happen. Next, with Grown On Me, we're going to go with Caitlyn Smith. I think Starfire at the time was a solid country pop album, but now I just love this thing, man. I think she is a great performer. She really adds a great quality, a great modern contemporary twist to country music. She really is one of those artists that I think you could be like, I don't really like country, but I like Caitlyn Smith, because I think she just combines both worlds of pop, contemporary, and country and Americana all together to just really blend nicely. And there's even some rockier instrumentals on this thing too. Honestly, she's great. She's really great. And at the time, I thought this album was okay, but nah, this album's really, really good. Just think of like Casey Musgraves, for example. Think about what she was doing on Golden Hour, where she was going for a more accessible sound, but still sort of dabbling in the country lane. And Caitlyn Smith does that too. So if you like Casey, you're gonna like Caitlyn. Next, I want to mention Jericho Jackson for Grown Off. I think the Marlowe and Jericho Jackson albums were very specific to me, because at the time I didn't really see anyone else raving about them aside from me, maybe a few others out there, but not really that many people were really apart from me. So these last two are very specific to my own tastes, I will say. But yeah, Jericho Jackson, Elzai, Crisis. Elzai, fantastic rapper, by the way. But I don't know what it is about this. I think, again, the flip side to what I was saying about the Marlowe album applies here. I think Elzai is just performing at a level that Crisis just isn't quite up to. And I think the bars that Elzai is spitting are amazing, but the beats he's rapping over are pretty standard boom bap beats. It's pretty typical rap stuff. You've heard this before a million times. And while Elzai is at his A game, I'm just not as rushing to replay this one as much as I wanted to, and as much as I used to back when it came out. Next is an interesting one, actually, because I liked this at the time, but I wasn't really that big on it. But I have really grown to appreciate Serpentwithfeet, especially after his sophomore release, which just wasn't very good. It wasn't very good. But, mate, this album is actually really good. Like I'm impressed. I did not catch the amazing heartfelt lyricism that was on this album the first time, and the passion in the vocals that this man has is unmatched. He is really one of a kind. I think the way he's blending soul, R&B, pop, even experimental elements in some cases with the instrumentals, like he actually has a lot going for him. And I think the beauty in the lyrics and the sort of heartfelt emotion that comes with it, I really appreciate. I did not catch this originally, and I went back to it recently, and I've got to say, I was tripping because this is really good. He really conjures up some amazing imagery with his lines on this, and yeah, Serpentwithfeet nailed it with this album. To be honest, I wish I'd been on board with it at the time, because I should have been. Next, a bit of a controversial one. In fact, the next two are a little bit controversial, really. Like I said, the last two were specific to me, but maybe you've clicked off the video by now, and that's maybe why I left these for later. Hopefully you didn't click off though. But we do have Noname with Room 25. And I think what it is with this album is that it just isn't Telephone. And I think I love Telephone that much that Room 25 somehow just doesn't live up to it in comparison. And I don't know what it is with this album, but I just don't really remember any potent moments in terms of the lyrics. There are some really good moments. Don't Forget About Me, I think, is a really beautiful track. But when it comes to actual bars and memorable lines and memorable moments, I actually don't think Noname provides as many as she did with Telephone. And her most recent single seems to be going in the direction of giving us more hookier and accessible tunes. And I think that's a good direction for her, because I just think Room 25 lacks something. And it just isn't one that I've been wanting to go back to. I've not been itching to go back to it ever since it really came out. Next, with Grown On Me, we got Let's See Grandma, another album similar to Serpentwithfeet, where I just didn't appreciate the elements that were coming through the first time around. There were tracks that I obviously liked, but some of the tracks that I wasn't as keen on have actually started to grow on me a lot more. Falling Into Me, I think, is a fantastic track. And yeah, they're actually really good at providing an interesting like synth pop sound, and they're so young too, so I think the potential and the talent that they've got is really impressive, and it makes me excited to see where they can go from here, because I still think there are some things that needed tidying up a little bit. Lyrically, it's not that great. That 9-minute song really shouldn't have been anywhere near 9 minutes, like, at all. But there are so many qualities to this album that, again, at the time, I think I was just pretty dismissive of. But you know what? I think they can put together a really, really strong pop tune. And I think, again, their next album is probably going to surpass this one. And I can't wait to see it. Finally, with the Grown Off Me section, as I just said, it's a bit of a controversial one. But this one really isn't that huge of a drop. I mean, it is in a way, but it's still an album I like. It's like the Against All Logic one. I still like it, but at the time I gave this like a 9 out of 10, and I think I was just a bit crazy, because I don't think I think that anymore. But Deafheaven with Ordinary Corrupt Human Love, this is a good album, don't get me wrong. I still think, you know, tracks like Honeycomb were really good. The closing track might be my favourite song, to be honest. I still think the guitar tones are wonderful. The builds are pretty much what we'd heard from them up until this point anyway. So nothing really surprising about this album in terms of what we'd expect from them as a band. But it's still good. I mean, it's kind of like the most recent Godspeed album, where, like, you know, you've heard them do these kinds of things before, but as long as it sounds good, you're not too mad. And I think this was exactly what this album was. And I would still say it's really good. I just think I was going way overboard with my score originally, because I do think they've given us their best with Sunbather, and I think comparing this to that, it definitely is a bit weaker, but it still is good on its own. I just wouldn't go as far as saying it's amazing. And finally, with Grown On Me, we have George Clanton. Always like to end on a positive, so going to end on this, because George Clanton, man, really nailed it with this album. I think his approach to blending chillwave, ambient music, psychedelic music, pop music, everything really that's very confined to internet, you know, music culture of the past however many years, even vaporwave elements, I guess you could say, come through a little bit on this thing. And yeah, I think once you just sink yourself into it, you find that he actually has a great amount of passion to his voice and his vocals and his delivery. While yes, sometimes he hits some lyrical cliches, I just don't think it matters too much because of how great he sounds. There's a charm to this album that I think is absolutely beautiful, and I think these tracks just sound pristine in their production. For such, you know, an early album in an artist's career, I think it's really hard to achieve this. And yeah, at the time I thought it was good, but it's just gotten better as years go on. It's really one of those albums that just keeps getting better the more you hear it. And I think if you haven't heard it since it came out back in 2018, really go back to this, and you'll see what I mean. I think a lot of the elements really start falling into place, and you really start to admire what's going on here. And honestly, it's pretty catchy at times too. Make It Forever is a catchy track. It's a great song, and yeah, really good album. And well, just hoping he carries it on with more music, because I think he's got something in him, really. I think he does. And that's it. That's the albums I've changed my mind on from 2018. There will be others too, but I wanted to focus on the more significant ones and the ones that I had something interesting to say about. And that's it. Hopefully I have entertained you and you enjoy this little mini series that's going on here. Like I say, I will carry this on if people are interested. And the next one I could do is 2019. I don't think I will do 2020 because 2020 has just ended, but 2019 has been a few years now. I could do that one for my next video. But if you want to see me do previous years, definitely let me know, because that would be great. Because I'd be happy to do it. Just let me know in the comments. Let me know what your thoughts are. Albums that you've changed your mind on from 2018. What were the biggest ones for you? Do have a good day. Thank you and goodbye.